You said, well, you wrote since your daughter was born, and you wrote less and less music. When did it urge came back to you?
Well, the urge was there, always there the whole time. It's just that I didn't have a songwriting partner. I had someone that refused to write to my material. You know, for example, Siren's Call off of The Turn, I wrote that song within weeks of writing Lakini's Juice, the initial music for it. So it's been around forever.
17 years ago.
Yeah. So that was the only one that got, everything else was like created spontaneously or brand new in the room. That was one of the ones that I dug back. Chris is a big fan of the Secret Samadhi era of the band. And so I thought, how was I writing songs back then? And I dug through my old demo tapes and I found that one and thought, okay, well, let's try this. And it nearly didn't work. I mean, the reality is Siren's Call is probably the one track.
That was one of the hardest songs.
How come?
Well, it went through so many different revisions and I mean, we tore it apart. I mean, it started with the riff and then I had the counter riff and then we did, it changed so much, and I just thought that from the original jam we were doing, it was just straying, and it was never going to get back to where we started. And then you know, Jerry Harrison comes in, and him and I are writing these lyrics and piecing it together. And then I'm like, I don't know how we're going to ever do this live. How is this going to work? And then once it was all done, it became hands down like one of my favorite tracks. I mean, when I heard the final mix that Tom Lord Alge did, he goes, come here, sit down right here, and hit that button, and turn it up, you know. And I heard the mix. I resounding. I said, that's the first track. That has got to be the first track of the record.
Did you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I thought it was. I still even think in concert, it's the one song that I'm like, you know, most looking forward to play. I don't know why.
Well, it has that same feeling like when I first heard Lakini's Juice. You know, like, what the hell is it? I don't know what it is, but it hammers you over the head.
It's my dark, twisted brain.
No, but the thing is, I think I thought it also. I think Lakini's Juice was something different from what you were doing. It was fresh. It was new back then. I mean, from what you were doing previously.
Well, you know, when I think that when you're a kid, especially as a songwriter, you're really always trying to challenge yourself to come up with something new. Now, as an adult writing music, I recognize most likely it's been done before in some way, shape, or form. And so now I try and look at the body of work of not only what we've created, but what other artists are doing, and just say, well, what inspires me? What kind of feel do I like? And for me, I love music that pushes and pulls. So if you hear a song like Lakini's Juice, you know, it's doing major over minor transitions, which is really...
It's also it's just a bold arrangement. There's no way to be able to write a song like that and not throw a chorus within the first minute, or you know, do that. The song allows itself to develop into this giant crescendo, and it's fantastic. And that just comes from pure balls. I mean, to just kind of go, no, this is how it's going to go. We don't need to put the chorus right up here if we want to, you know. Yeah. We're going to take our time and get there, and it's tough to do that now.
This version of live is somewhat interesting. When we were first releasing records in the early 90s, of course, you know, there was the grunge movement with Nirvana and Soundgarden and Pearl Jam. But those bands, while they were our contemporaries, they had no influence on us. You know, like we hadn't heard Alice in Chains, etc. This version of the band that plays now is not scared to use those bands as an influence. So you can actually hear a much harder, I don't know, manlier sound that comes out of the band. And I think that's just because we had, you know, whatever it was, 8 years since the last record to listen to music and say, well, this is really how we want to sound or how we want the dynamic of the band to be. Yeah. You can even hear, you know, I think some Radiohead influence and some, you know, sort of more, even more contemporary artists than that. But I'm just saying that even live itself wound up being somewhat of an influence on the album.
Yeah, yeah. Because you were...
Yeah, well, we went back and we listened to the old songs. I mean, part of that was just, you know, like...
I wanted to tap into the mysticism of the band, like the cool, spooky, moody part of live that I was always attracted to. Like I was a fan since Metal Jewelry, and there was something that I resonated with me because, you know, little did he know, in North Carolina, I was kind of living the same parallel deal. I was in my own little band, Imaginary Heroes, and they were in Public Affection. We were doing the same thing, taking the same drugs. kind of.
And the
you
same
know,
black and white pictures,
Yes.
which once photocopied onto a flyer looks almost exactly like the same band.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, it's
But
pretty scary.
but the spiritual aspect of where they were going, you know, whether it was intentional or not, which it was, resonates with me still.
If you have to describe this this mysticism, what this is, what is it?
It's acknowledging that we're just a band. We're just four guys that make music. And we're lucky to do that. We're lucky to be alive right now, you know? So there is something else. There is something else bigger than all of this. And to be aware of that and to channel that and to kind of play humbly, you know, and I think that's the mysticism, that if you wear it and you feel it, it goes through all the songs. Yeah. And it's just kind of a, you know, there's no such thing as a bad show if we're together having fun. It's like just, there's something bigger, basically, is what I'm trying to say.
I have a question for you, because you said, well, during Blind Melon, you said, well, I didn't want it at that time. I didn't want to fill in the shoes of Shannon Hoon.
Yeah.
But now you're filling the shoes of Ed Kowalczyk.
Yeah.
What did change for you?
Well, I was 26 when we started Unified Theory. Mm-hmm. And I made it very clear back then. I mean, you know, I was young, and I still thought the world was mine, and you know that I was going to get my big break, and my band would be huge, and all that kind of stuff. I wasn't going to lay down and, you know, do something else for some other band, because I still was in the fight. I was still in the thick of it in LA. You know, I'm 40 now, so not that really makes a difference. I mean, I love singing so much that. What better band could I possibly ever be a part of? I mean, these guys are so great.
Say, I mean, to be fair, I think that live music matches up with who you are.
No, it totally does. It totally does.
Like, you know, I mean, you know, Chris's bands, I mean, even just the names of the bands, you know, Unified Theory or Everything is Energy. I mean, these are, I mean, they're literally could have been live album titles.
Yeah.
You know, so we were.
It was a seamless fit. I mean,
yeah, it was very easy to fit together. And also, I want to say this. You know, when Chad, Patrick, and I, so we formed the Gracious Few with Kevin Martin, and thankfully, you know, the record was very cathartic, if not therapeutic. There was a lot of anger and resentment and confusion in our lives, and it came out in the music, I think, in a great way. But part of that process was that, you know, Kevin Martin kept saying to us, you know, at some point I have to go back to Candlebox, I have to make a record there. And when I do that, you guys are going to have to figure out what music means to you. Like, what does it, like, do you still want to make music? And I remember I was in, you know, total denial about that. And then sure enough, the day came, Kevin went, he had to make a Candlebox record. And I called Chad and Pat and said, well, what are we doing? Like, do we just quit now? Are we done? And we sort of all agreed that we were in a groove writing and making music. And that's when we said, okay, well, let's stop fooling around. Let's get Chris Shinn on the phone and go from there. And that was literally in one meeting, one day. No list of people, no anything.
Was it back then, was it for you was the intention to reform live? Or?
No, not really. No, the intention wasn't to necessarily reform live. What we knew, I want to say this, we knew that we wanted to explore playing live songs. So, you know, the initial phone call with Chris, I said, you know, we'd like to play through some of these songs. And Chris was so cool. He said, well, look, I get how sensitive you guys are about this, and no harm, no foul. Like, you know, I've played songs my whole life. Like, we'll just get in a room and we'll see how it goes. And, you know, I was pretty convinced that, like, maybe the building would crumble or the roof would fall down, or, I just don't know. This is live is a very sensitive thing for us. It really is a brotherhood more than just being musicians, and so we had to approach it like how you would approach a family, and Chris came very gently into that, and it was also a seamless fit. We played a few old live songs, and in the midst of one of them, I don't know, Patrick and I just sort of looked at each other, and we put our instruments down and said, okay, well, we don't need to do that anymore, because we can do that. That's easy. You sound great singing it, but we're going to have to be defined by writing new songs and writing new things. And what does that look like? Okay, so we know that if we want to call it live, that's no problem, that we can do that.
What was the first song?
The first song was
that we played.
I
The new
Alone.
song.
The first song that we wrote. Was it We Opened the Door? I think it was We Opened the Door.
Maybe.
It was one of the first songs.
And when did you know, when you wrote this song, did you know, well, now we can reform live?
Well, I want to say there were two songs in particular for me. The Way Around Is Through and We Opened the Door. And less than how they sounded sonically, how they made me felt like live. And they were the first two tracks that I sent to management, because we hadn't told management that we were working or doing anything. And I was sort of sent this little package away, and they would call back and said, well, what is this? We love it. It's great. And I said, well, it's new live. And that's really, I think, the first time that I told anybody that we were calling it live.
And was it hard legally to reform the band?
No. Chad, Pat, and I, we control live, so Ed left. And so it was very easy in that sense.
Yeah.